I've spent nearly half my life behind the stoves of the same restaurant in Portland, Oregon. 46, I carry myself with the quiet dignity of someone who has seen kitchens rise and fall, yet never lost my devotion to food. My hands bear the faint scars of decades of chopping, stirring, baking, and plating. But they are also steady, hands that move with the precision of muscle memory and the warmth of care. To me, cooking is not a job but a way of speaking, a language I have mastered long ago. I started humbly 2 decades earlier as an assistant in the kitchen. In those days, I did the unglamorous work, peeling onions, scrubbing pots, staying late after shifts to wipe down stainless steel counters. Over the years, as chefs came and went, I remained. My loyalty and skill earned me the title of head chef more than a decade ago. Since then, I have become the soul of the restaurant. The staff relies on my steady presence, and regular customers ask for me by name. The restaurant itself reflects Portland's charm. Intimate, warm, with brick walls and a quiet view of the street outside. It has survived food trends and economic storms largely because the food I craft speaks for itself. But it isn't only my talent that keeps things together. The owner, David Callahan, has a share of brilliance too. David, now 50, is a man of contrasts. He loves food with a passion equal to mine, and when inspired, he can dream up dishes that bring crowds through the doors. He has a boyish smile, an easy laugh, and the kind of charisma that makes people forgive him more than they should. Yet behind the charm lies a weakness that has shadowed him for years. Cards, poker, blackjack, whatever the game, he can't resist the rush of risk. I have watched him stumble in and out of trouble many times. There have been nights when paychecks were delayed for weeks because David had played too deeply into losses. I remember the whispers of the staff, the frustration that builds up when bills go unpaid. And yet somehow David always makes things right in the end. Money appears, debts get cleared, and wages come with bonuses as if to soothe the hurt. The staff, weary but loyal, stays. I, more than anyone, forgive him, though I never forget. It isn't that I excuse his recklessness, but I have known him long enough to see more than his faults. David isn't greedy. He isn't cruel. He is at his core a man adrift. Someone who can be brilliant when he focuses, but who too often lets himself drown in his own flaws. And perhaps because I have spent years anchoring myself in the heat of the kitchen, I allow myself to anchor him too. On that particular morning, I pushed open the back door of the restaurant with my usual totes slung over my shoulder. The autumn air outside had been crisp, tinged with the earthy smell of wet leaves. Inside, the familiar scent of yeast and simmering stock should have comforted me. But as I stepped across the threshold, I felt a ripple of unease. Something was off. It wasn't visible at first glance. Kitchen looked the same. Knives lined in their racks, copper pans gleaming dully under fluorescent light, prep stations ready for the day ahead. Yet my instincts, sharpened by years of weathering both quiet mornings and stormy nights in this place, tell me something is waiting. I pause with my hand resting on the counter, listening. The muffled sound of staff voices carries faintly from the front of the house, hushed and clustered, unlike the normal bustle of setting tables and brewing coffee. My heart tightens. Staff only gathers like that when news has traveled fast and never good news. I straighten my shoulders, adjusting my chef's coat. Whatever it is, I will face it. I have spent too many years here to be easily shaken. But as I walk toward the dining room, my steps are heavier than usual, as though my body already knows the weight of what my ears have yet to hear. The day begins like any other, yet the air in the restaurant feels changed, thick with an invisible tension. My unease deepens with each step, the certainty forming inside me that this will not be just another morning in my kitchen. In the dining room, I find a small knot of waiters and boozers gathered near the hostess stand. They aren't setting tables or polishing glasses. Instead, they stand in a circle, whispering with pale faces, their voices tense, their hands twisting napkins or tugging at sleeves. The moment I appear, the group goes silent, my brow furrows. Why isn't anyone working? What's going on? A young waitress, barely out of college, shifts nervously. Scarlett, you haven't heard? Heard what? My voice sharpens. I set my tote bag on a nearby chair, arms crossing. David, the girl begins and then falters. Someone else finishes for her, blurting it out as though pulling off a bandage. He lost the restaurant in a poker game last night. The words strike me like a blow to the chest. For a heartbeat, I simply stare, waiting for someone to laugh, to shake their head, to admit it is some cruel rumor. But the silence that follows tells me all I need to know. My throat tightens. Where is he? In his office, the hostess whispers. I don't waste another second. I turn on my heel, my shoes clicking sharply against the wooden floor as I stride toward the back hallway. Every step feels heavier than the last. At David's office door, I don't bother knocking. I push it open, my eyes locking onto him at once. He is slumped behind his desk, a cigarette burning low between his fingers, a gray haze curling around his face. He looks up briefly, then drops his gaze as though unable to meet mine. Tell me it isn't true, I say, my voice quiet but edged with steel. David gives a hollow laugh and gestures vaguely with the cigarette. I'm guessing they already told you out front. David, I press, stepping into the room. What have you done? For a moment, he says nothing. Then he grounds the cigarette into the ashtray with slow finality. I made a mistake. His voice is rough, almost broken. I thought I could win it back. Thought I had the cards, but I didn't. And now, he exhales, leaning back in his chair, eyes fixed on the ceiling as if hoping the plaster can swallow him whole. Now the place is gone. He'll be here tomorrow morning to sign the papers. My stomach drops. Tomorrow. It is that immediate, that final. You promised me, I whisper, my anger trembling beneath the words. You swore you were done with this. I know. His voice cracks. He leans forward, burying his face in his hands. I know, Scarlett, but I slipped. And there's no undoing it. For a long, heavy silence, I simply stand there. My chest aches with conflicting feelings, fury, sorrow, disbelief. I want to shake him, to scream at him for destroying everything we have built together. But I also see the defeat in his posture, the way his shoulders sag like a man twice his age. It isn't greed that has led him here, nor malice. It is his own weakness, the flaw that has always haunted him, and there is nothing I can do to change it. My lips press into a thin line. I turn without another word and leave the office, my heart hammering, my mind spinning. Back in the kitchen, I tie on my apron and reach for a cutting board. The familiar rhythm of my work, the scrape of knife against wood, the scent of garlic beneath my blade, steadies my hands, if not my spirit. I move briskly, focusing on each task, each motion, as if the discipline of cooking can shield me from the storm raging inside. But even as I chop and stir, my thoughts run in circles. Tomorrow, everything I've poured 20 years into will belong to someone else. This kitchen, my kitchen, might no longer be mine. My staff sneaks anxious glances my way, waiting to see if I'll crack, but I keep my back straight, my hands steady. Only my eyes, locked on the simmering pot in front of me, betray the truth. Beneath their calm, I'm reeling from betrayal, bracing for what's coming. Kitchen hums with its usual sounds, pans clattering, steam hissing, but I feel like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground shaking under me. Tomorrow is coming, and with it, a fall I can't stop. By late afternoon, the restaurant sinks into an uneasy quiet. My staff moves through the dining room in stiff, hesitant steps, dreading something we can't avoid. The news has spread. David gambled it all away. Papers aren't signed yet, but the man who won the restaurant is already on his way. The handover isn't until tomorrow, but Tyler arrives early, acting like he already owns the place. Just before dusk, the front doors swing open. A group of young men spills in, their laughter loud and sharp. Their center is Tyler Callahan, David's 30-year-old nephew. He's in designer sneakers and a leather jacket, his face smug like he's got nothing to prove. His eyes scan the room with restless boredom. Well, he drawls, his voice carrying. This is my new place. Looks quaint. His friends laugh, already heading to the bar like it's theirs. I step forward, my chef's coat still marked from the day's work. I don't speak, but my presence demands respect. Tyler's gaze lands on me, his smirk widening. "And who's this?" he asks, flicking his hand toward me. "I'm the head chef," I say evenly, though my heart pounds. "The head chef," he mocks, laughing. He turns to his friends. "More like an old relic. What is she, 50? 60? Time for new blood, right?" His group laughs cruelly and heat rushes to my face. I've been called strict, demanding, stubborn, but never dismissed like this, never reduced to an insult about my age. Tyler steps closer, his voice low and cutting. "Your time's up, old lady. Go home. We'll get someone younger who knows what's trending. This isn't your kitchen anymore." The room freezes. The waitstaff, the bartenders, even David, who's crept out of his office, stands still. Everyone waits for my response. I could argue, demand the respect I've earned through decades of sweat, building this place with my own hands. But Tyler's contempt hits me hard. No words will change how he sees me, nothing. With slow, deliberate movements, I untie my apron and set it on the counter. I remove my chef's hat and place it beside it. Head high, I walk past Tyler and out through the swinging doors. Only in the evening air do I crack. Tears blur my vision as I hurry down the sidewalk, fumbling for my phone. It's all I took. My purse, my keys, the photos in my locker, all left behind in the kitchen that shaped my life. Portland's streets feel foreign now. Each step pulls me further from the place I called home for 20 years. By the time I reach my apartment, my legs ache, my face wet with tears. I collapse onto the couch, hands covering my face. The silence here is deafening. For years, my life moved to the rhythm of the kitchen, pots clanging, steam hissing, cooks shouting. Now, the quiet presses on me like a weight. I sit, trembling with anger and grief. But I can't stay like this, it'll break me. I stand, change into jeans and a jacket, wipe my face, and step outside. The night air is cool, smelling of rain on pavement. I walk with no destination, letting the city's hum and the rhythm of my steps steady my heart. Behind me, the restaurant's doors have closed, shutting off the life I built. Ahead, there's only uncertainty. The hours drag in my apartment, each tick of the clock pulling me deeper into restlessness. Lying down doesn't help, the silence presses too hard. I try the TV, but the voices blur into noise. For years, my nights belonged to the restaurant's rush, orders, plates, chatter. Sitting alone now feels like being cut adrift from my own pulse. Close to midnight, I grab my jacket. I can't leave my things behind, my purse, my keys, the keepsakes in my locker. Not in a place where strangers now act like they own it. More than that, I can't stay still. I need to move. Portland's streets pulse with life. Couples stroll, laughter spills from bars, bicycles flash by with neon streaks. I walk fast, my breath visible in the cool air, my heart pounding with a mix of anger and grief. As I reach the restaurant's familiar brick exterior, my steps slowed. Light glowed faintly through the windows. I hesitated, slipping into the alley's shadows. That's when I saw them, Tyler's rowdy friends from earlier, rushing out the side door. They muttered, glancing back nervously before vanishing into the night. Their hurried exit unsettled me. It wasn't the careless swagger I'd seen before. I approached the back entrance. The door hung slightly ajar. Caution tugged at me, but curiosity pushed harder. I slipped inside, my footsteps silent on the tiled floor. The restaurant was eerily quiet. Chairs sat askew. A half-empty glass rested on the bar. I moved toward the dining room, scanning the space. Then I saw him, Tyler Callahan, slumped over a table, head on his arm, a bottle at his side. I exhaled sharply. Drunk and careless, I thought. I should have turned and left him to his mess. But something felt wrong about the silence. I stepped closer, my shoes clicking softly. "Tyler," I said cautiously, my voice carrying. "You need to lock the doors before you pass out." He didn't move. My frown deepened. I reached to shake his shoulder just to wake him enough to grab my things and go. But when I touched him, his body slid unnaturally off the table. I caught him instinctively and gasped. His skin was clammy, his lips a terrifying shade of blue. His chest barely moved, breath shallow and uneven. This wasn't drunkenness. He was in trouble. God, I whispered, adrenaline surging. My hand shook as I lowered him to the floor. I'm no nurse or doctor, but years-old CPR training kicked in. I grabbed my phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. This is 911. What's your emergency? A man's collapsed, I said, forcing the words out. He's barely breathing. His lips are blue. I think it's his heart. Please hurry. The dispatcher's voice was calm. Stay on the line. Help's coming. Can you start CPR? Yes, I said, kneeling beside Tyler. I can. I tilted his head back, checked his airway, and pressed my ear to his mouth. His faint gasps tightened my chest. I laced my fingers and started compressions, counting under my breath, my heart racing with each push. The restaurant, which hours ago had humiliated me, now echoed with my urgent voice as I fought to keep Tyler alive. I didn't think about irony or justice. Instinct took over. My arms ached, tears blurred my vision, but I pressed harder, refusing to let him go. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing louder until red and blue lights flooded the walls. Paramedics rushed in, their voices sharp and practiced. I stepped back, arms shaking, chest heaving. They checked Tyler's pulse, applied oxygen, and prepped him for transport. One medic nodded at me. You did good. You might have saved him. Then they were gone, Tyler on a stretcher, swept into the night. I stood frozen, palms damp, knees weak. As the sirens faded, I grabbed my phone again. I needed to call David. He answered on the second ring, voice heavy with despair. Scarlett, you need to come, I said. It's Tyler. He collapsed. The ambulance just left. Pause, then a sharp inhale. I'm coming. 15 minutes later, David arrived, hair messy, coat thrown on hastily. His eyes darted over the overturned chair, the glass on the table, the traces of chaos. What happened? He asked. I told him in short, clipped words, too drained for details. I found Tyler slumped over. Called 911. I kept him alive until help came. David listened, hands gripping a table for support, his face pale. He rubbed his temples, eyes red with something deeper than exhaustion, shame, maybe, or fear. He's just a kid, he whispered more to himself. I handed him this place without seeing he was falling apart. I should have known. Silence settled over us, heavy and hollow. The restaurant, once alive with clatter and chatter, felt empty. Only the hum of the refrigerator broke the quiet. David sank into a chair, gesturing for me to sit across from him. We sat in silence, the weight of the night pressing down. Finally, David gave a tired laugh, empty of joy but full of feeling. You've always been stronger than me, Scarlett. I lose it all in a card game, and you're still holding it together. You always have. I looked at him, weary but soft. Strength can't fix everything, David. He leaned back, exhaling, his eyes searching mine like he wanted to confess something deeper. Then, almost carelessly, the words slipped out. Marry me, Scarlett. I blinked, sitting straighter. What did you just say? David gave a sheepish half-shrug. Marry me, Scarlett. Why not? You're the only one who's ever believed in me. You're the reason this place has lasted. We don't have to be just tied to this restaurant, we could be tied to each other. I let out a startled laugh. You're proposing in the middle of the night, after your nephew nearly died in this dining room? David's faint smile held a rare vulnerability. I'm serious. I don't want to lose you. Not after everything. I wanted to brush it off, call it a tired joke. But his slumped shoulders, the slight crack in his voice told me he meant it. For once, he was being honest. My lips curved into a small smile. "Your timing's awful, David." "Maybe," he said. "But do I get an answer?" I let the silence linger a moment before answering softly, "Yes, David." "You do." We left the restaurant as dawn broke over Portland. The streets shimmered with last night's rain, the air cool against our skin. Our hands found each other, fingers entwining naturally. For the first time in years, I felt something beyond weariness, a fragile spark of possibility, a whisper of a life we could still build. As we walked into the gray morning, the night's heaviness lifted, replaced by a quiet warmth I hadn't expected. Morning light poured through the restaurant's wide windows, bathing the dining room in soft gray. David and I sat at a corner table, drained but awake, 2 cups of untouched coffee cooling between us. Our silence was heavy but not uneasy. The front door creaked open. I looked up, expecting a staff member or the landlord. Instead, a tall man in a sharp suit stepped inside. His presence filled the room, not loud but commanding, his silver hair catching the light. "Mr. Callahan," David murmured, half rising, his voice tinged with surprise and dread. My breath caught. I recognized him, Senator William Callahan, a man I'd seen on news broadcasts, his words carrying the weight of the state. Tyler's father. His sharp eyes softened as they met mine. "You're the one," he said quietly. "You called 911. You kept my son alive." I shifted, uneasy under his gaze. "I did what anyone would." "No," he said firmly. "Not anyone. Most would have walked away. I owe you more than I can repay." He pulled out a chair and sat, his authority natural but his tone measured. He glanced at David, who gripped a chair, face pale. "I spoke to the doctors," the senator said. "Tyler's condition has been unstable for years. He needed surgery long ago, but his mother," he shook his head, dismissing the past. "You gave us another chance with him. I'm deeply grateful." I nodded, still rattled by his formal gratitude. David spoke, voice strained. "Senator, about the restaurant," William's eyes cut to him. "Tyler, I've heard." "I lost it in a game last night," David said. "He was supposed to take it this morning." "The papers, they're not signed," William cut in. "No," David admitted. William leaned back, a flicker of relief crossing his face before it hardened. "Listen carefully, David. There's no deal. No transfer. You're still the legal owner and you'll stay that way. A card game means nothing here." I exhaled, only then realizing I'd been holding my breath. David sank into his chair, disbelief and hope etching his face. William pulled a card from his jacket and set it on the table. "My direct number. If you need anything, call me. It's the least I can do for saving my son's life." I stared at the card's embossed lettering gleaming in the light. Felt like a lifeline after days of drowning. William stood, buttoning his jacket. "I'll handle Tyler. He'll get the care he should have had. As for you too," his eyes moved between us, "protect this place. It deserves better than being gambled away." He walked out, his shoes clicking until the door swung shut. Neither David nor I spoke for a long moment. Card glinted on the table, a promise that not everything was lost. I looked at David. "Do you realize what just happened?" He laughed, disbelieving, rubbing his face. "We got our lives back, Scarlett." For me, who'd walked home in despair hours ago, it felt unreal, like stepping from a storm into sunlight. The senator's exit left a surreal silence. His card gleamed faintly, a reminder the storm over the restaurant had broken in our favor. For the first time in days, maybe years, David's face showed something other than exhaustion or regret. He leaned back, staring around the dining room like he was seeing it for the first time. "Scarlett," David said softly, "I can never repay you for last night. For saving Tyler, for standing by me when you had every right to leave." My eyes softened, but my voice stayed steady. I didn't do it for you, David. It was the right thing to do. I know, he said, almost smiling. That's why it means so much. He leaned forward, hands folded on the table. This place was never just mine. Without you, there'd be no restaurant to lose. You've carried it for 20 years. I tilted my head, unsure where this was going. I want to give you half, he said. Legally, papers, ownership, everything. You deserve it more than I do. I froze, stunned. Not because I doubted him, but because David never let go of anything. This restaurant was his pride, his folly, his identity. Now he was offering half as a gift. My lips parted to speak, but he smirked, his tone shifting. Although there's a simpler way. Instead of papers and lawyers, I could just marry you. Then we wouldn't have to split anything. I blinked, then laughed, startled. David Callahan, that's the most unromantic proposal I've ever heard. He shrugged, eyes glinting with nervous hope. I'm a practical man, Scarlett. Practical? I teased, raising an eyebrow. You nearly gambled away everything. That's your practical. He chuckled, rubbing his neck. Fair point. His face softened, humor fading. I don't want you carrying this place alone anymore. Or me. I want us for real. Something in me shifted. 4 years I'd been his colleague, confidant, sometimes caretaker. I'd seen his worst, forgiven him more than most would. I never imagined a future beyond the kitchen. But now, seeing his sincerity, his fidgeting fingers, I felt something bloom where weariness once lived. I laughed softly, warmly. You're terrible at this, you know. At being romantic? He asked. Then teach me. The silence stretched, no longer heavy. I leaned back, a smile lingering. For the first time, I saw not just the man who stumbled, but the one who kept trying to stand. I wanted to stand with him. Tension in my chest eased, replaced by a fragile warmth, a hope that there was a future worth holding. David's hand covered mine across the table. I didn't pull away. For two people who'd faced years of loneliness and mistakes, the gesture was simple but heavy with meaning, a promise we didn't have to face the world alone. The weeks that followed brought quiet change. With Senator Callahan's gratitude, new equipment arrived. Sleek ovens, gleaming refrigerators, tools that made even veteran chefs pause in awe. To me, they felt like gifts, proof my work still mattered. I dove back into the kitchen with fresh fire. Long days felt like home again. Chopping vegetables, the scent of herbs, the hiss of simmering sauces, it was comfort, not duty. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was creating, shaping dishes with love. Customers noticed. Word spread that the restaurant had been reborn. Tables filled nightly, laughter and chatter spilling through the dining room, life weaving back into the walls. The staff, once worn by late paychecks, worked with pride again, as if the restaurant itself had taken a deep breath. I moved among them, steady and calm. I wasn't just the woman who'd weathered storms, I was the heart of this place. A spark of joy returned to my eyes, one I hadn't seen in years. David stayed close, still with his frustrations and self-deprecating humor, but lighter now, as if my acceptance had grounded him. He teased me about the new machines, saying I spoke sweeter to them than to him. They don't talk back, I shot back, smirking. He clutched his chest dramatically. So that's all it takes? I'll shut up then. I rolled my eyes, but my smile gave me away. Our banter filled the gaps between orders, a quiet reassurance to the staff that joy could return, even after debts and near losses. At night, with customers gone and chairs stacked, I'd linger in the kitchen, polishing the new equipment until it shone. David would lean in the doorway, watching with a fondness that needed no words. Sometimes he teased, sometimes he joined me, drying pans or wiping counters. We worked together, not from duty but choice. In those moments, I realized life felt different. After years of giving everything to a place that nearly slipped away, I wasn't afraid of tomorrow anymore. The future was uncertain, but it was ours. One morning, as Portland stirred awake, David took my hand as we stepped outside. The rain had cleared, leaving the streets gleaming under a pale sunrise. The air carried the faint scent of coffee from nearby cafes. We walked slowly, fingers intertwined, steps unhurried. No grand words were needed. The silence between us was full, steady, content. I glanced at David, seeing not the gambler who'd nearly lost it all, but the man who'd chosen to change, who'd chosen me. For the first time in years, I believed happiness, late as it was real. As the early light bathed us in soft gold, we kept walking, hand in hand, ready to start again.